Moving forward here, next comes in the concept of spectral lines. Please understand that electrons will exist in discrete energy levels. Now, what do I mean by that? Every electron has a specific amount of energy. In the ground state, through research and calculations, it was worked out that in the ground state, an electron will have this amount of energy, right? When I want to excite an electron, right, I need to provide a fixed amount of energy so that it reaches a higher energy orbital. If I further give in a fixed amount of energy, it will move on to a second energy level, right? These energy levels are also called shells, which you used to study in O levels. If I keep providing energy and the electron keeps on getting excited to energy levels, there may come a point when all the energy levels have been crossed, and at that instant the electron jumps out from the nuclear attraction of the nucleus, and the atom now converts into an ion.
सर ये वो escape velocity वाली चीज है.
The fact that an electron jumped to a higher energy level, right? Let's say from the ground state, the electron jumped to the first excited state. This is called your spectral line, right? This is an absorption spectral line because it is absorbing the energy and getting excited to a higher energy level.
जो है वो switch कर रहा है ना.
So I've written all of this here. It is believed that electrons exist only in certain allowed discrete orbits. These orbits are called energy levels. The electron in an atom generally occupies the lowest energy available and is said to be in its ground state, where it has the least amount of energy. This electron in the ground state can be made to jump into any one of the higher energy levels by providing it with sufficient energy. The electron is now said to be in an excited state, and the energy it absorbs during this phenomenon is termed as the excitation energy. Sometimes an electron may receive enough energy which enables it to break the attractive forces of the nucleus. When this happens, the atom is said to be ionized, and this amount of energy is termed as the ionization energy. The energy levels can be diagrammatically represented as horizontal lines illustrated in figure 1, and the energy content for each of these energy levels is generally expressed in units of electron volt. Figure 1 shows the energy levels for an electron belonging to a particular atom, and the energy content for the respective energy levels is indicated below. You don't have to learn these values, right? Please understand that they will make you calculate all of this. and I'll tell you how that happens. Since electron has a natural tendency to be pulled inwards towards the nucleus, electron has a negative charge. The nucleus is positively charged because it contains protons, right? So therefore, this results in a loss in electric potential energy, which is signified by a negative sign, and therefore we have these negative signs here, right? Let's say I have an electron and I am providing it with a photon of a certain wavelength. Now photons have energy. You know for a fact that energy is equals to HF. You don't know the frequency, but you are asked to calculate the wavelength, right? So it can be broken down into C upon lambda, where C is the speed of light, 3 into 10 to the power of 8. Now you are asked to calculate this transition from the first energy level to the second energy level. You need to understand that your second energy level value is 3.4 eV. Your first energy level value was minus 13.6. So your calculation goes around like this. There's electron volt, you convert it into by multiplying it by 1 into 10 to the power of minus 19. This gets converted into joules. Now you can apply HC upon lambda. H value is provided to you in the data booklet. C is the speed of light, and you can work out the value of lambda somehow like this. Consider an electron which is initially in its ground state. When a photon of a particular wavelength or frequency interacts with this electron, excitation occurs, right? Causing the electron to jump to a higher energy level. This transition with arrowhead pointing in the upward direction is represented by the construction of an absorption spectral line. Absorption spectral line has the direction upwards. Now, when the electron is at a higher energy level, please understand that it wants to achieve stability, and in doing so, it will have to lose its energy, and therefore the electron tries to lose that energy so that it can come back to the ground state or the original state. And this downward line is the emission spectral line, because during this transition, the electron will emit a certain amount of energy. This is mentioned here. When this electron is in an excited state, it is considered to be in an unstable form, and therefore it de-excites and falls down to any one of the lower energy levels. In this case, photon of a specific wavelength or frequency is emitted, and this can be diagrammatically represented by constructing a line with arrowhead in the downward direction. These lines are referred to as the emission spectral lines. Let's say in the exam they ask you suggest why existence of spectral lines will provide evidence for the existence of fixed energy levels in an atom. Please understand that each spectral line is produced only when a photon of a certain wavelength is absorbed or emitted. Based on equals to h upon lambda, each of these wavelengths will correspond to a fixed change with energy levels. Since only certain are absorbed, therefore this case must exist. So moving forward, emission spectral lines are somewhat shown like this, right? Sometimes they give you a diagram and they ask you to calculate or count they give you these energy levels. Right? You need to calculate the number of emission lines. You name them. Let's say you call this E1, E2, E3, E4. There is an emission possible of the electron from E1, E4 to E1. then this is possible, right? Further, this is possible, and then this is possible. Now that you calculate or count these lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So total number of spectral lines that are available or that are possible are 6. If they ask you for the longest wavelength, please understand that E is equals to hc upon lambda. So if you need the longest wavelength, you need the smallest energy transition. And if they ask you for the greatest frequency is where the energy difference is the greatest. For example, this from this point till this point would be the greatest energy difference. From this point to this point would be the smallest energy transition. Forward, let's say they provide you with a spectral line diagram. They ask you to obtain a relationship between lambda 1, lambda 2, and lambda 3. Right? Please understand that E3 minus E1 is equals to lambda hc upon lambda 3. You make an equation. E3 minus E1 or E1 minus E3 doesn't matter, is equals to hc upon lambda 3. Similarly, E2 minus E3 would give you hc upon lambda 1. E2 minus E1 will give you lambda 2, and E3 minus E2 will give you lambda 1. I've made these equations. E2 was common here, right? So I just subtracted these two equations, right? My final answer came out to be E1 minus E3. hc is common, 1 upon lambda 1 minus lambda 2. Please understand that E1 minus E3 is also equal to hc upon lambda 3. And therefore I just equated to get an answer value. I think these questions are along those same lines. I had white light which had a wavelength along this range, and I had to calculate the range of energy levels. So you take the lowest wavelength and calculate the energy content. You take the highest and calculate the energy content. From here, you need to understand that your energy difference lies in these two energy levels, right? And if you could just look around it, so it's somewhere around 1.77 to 3.1. So my transition will stay in between these two energy levels. Moving forward, let's say how to observe absorption spectrum for any gas. Let's say I have a gas. Now gases will have molecules. Light energy of a certain wavelength is incident into the area. I will notice that there are some bright areas of light and there are some dark regions of light, and then there are bright regions again. This happens because the wavelength of light that you are providing, right, that reaches the gas molecules and probably coincides with one of the energy levels. Now,
यानी कि सर बस ये बात है कि जो white, जी सर,
the absorption spectrum can be observed using the arrangement shown in figure 1. White light ranging from 400 nanometer to 700 nanometer is incident on the glass tube containing gas molecules. A screen is positioned in the background as shown. The spectrum observed on the screen appears as a continuous spectrum which is crossed by a few dark lines, which is the low intensity bright line. The appearance of dark lines arise because energy of the incoming photons was absorbed by the electrons in the gas, because the wavelengths precisely correspond with the excitation energy. In the given calculations, 3 wavelengths were absorbed, hence the appearance of 3 dark lines. Excitation occurs, but later on, when de-excitation takes place, the same wavelength frequency can be emitted. If this happens, the term dark lines must be replaced with low intensity bright lines. Before we start off with band theory, please understand that solids are divided into 3 categories. One is called a conductor, one is called a semiconductor, one is called an insulator. Right? CB is the conduction band, VB is the valence band. Right? Valence band is where the outermost valence electron lies. Right? CB is the conduction band. When the electron jumps into the conduction band, right, it will conduct electricity. Right? So for insulators, this difference between the conduction band and the valence band is of a very large value, and we say that the band gap is huge. For semiconductors, the band gap is okayish, such that the valence electrons from the valence band can jump into the conduction band. Whereas for conductors, this band gap is negligible, you could say. They actually coincide. Right? Such that the electrons in the valence band are already there in the conduction band.
Can conduct.
Yeah, semiconductors like silicon, they have a small band gap. There is a band gap, but it is of a small value. So the electron can jump into the conduction band, and therefore, once it does, silicon will conduct electricity. Right? Please understand that when the electron jumps into a higher conduction band, it leaves its place, meaning to say this now becomes a hole. This hole has to be replaced, so electron from the lower valence band will jump to take its place. How to construct energy levels in solids? Concept of band theory. In case of gases, since the atoms are further apart, therefore the energy levels of electrons are also very further apart. Hence the energy levels for each atom of a gas can be constructed separately as shown in figure 1. This is figure 1. This is for gases. In case of solids, since electrons in the neighboring atoms are close together, therefore they influence or interact with each other. As a result, this causes a slight change in energy levels, and hence for solids, these energy levels are illustrated as discrete lines, which are closely spaced out. This is illustrated in figure 2a. Right? There are discrete energy levels. And a simplified version for this diagram is shown in figure 2b. Meaning to say, this discrete level can be represented by this phenomenon. In this simplified diagram, in this simplified version, multiple energy levels are represented using a block diagram, and these blocks are referred to as energy bands. The energy band furthest away from the nucleus is known as conduction band, while all other bands are collectively referred to as the valence bands. The gap between individual bands is termed as forbidden gap or band gap. Electron can never exist